following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the Tiafangi coming to you what will hopefully be a successful review, and today we're going to be taking a look at what is currently my favorite deluxe class figure of the Legacy line, Transformers Legacy Autobot Skids. So just some quick history on Skids. He was one of 7 normal-sized Autobots as they were known in the Generation 1 line, or Autobot cars is what they were called. And it came to my attention in more recent years that apparently Hasbro was originally wanted Skids to be the last Autobot to be released in the 1984 lineup of Generation 1 Transformers, but then at the last moment Hasbro decided no, to wait and release Skids in 1985 live along with the Season 2 Autobots, and because of that, Sunbow Studios was uncertain if Hasbro wanted Skids to appear in the G1 cartoon show, and by the time Hasbro sent word to Sunbow Studios that yes, they did want Skids to appear in the cartoon series because he was one of the mainline Autobot characters, Sunbow Studios, the best they could do, because most of the plot lines of the episodes of the G1 cartoon had already been written, was all Sunbow Studios could do was shoehorn Skids as a background supporting character in 2 episodes of the G1 cartoon, and because Skids is the only 1985 Autobot who did not get an episode that focused on him or had him as a focal character, he has earned the unfortunate nickname of being the Forgotten Autobot, because Hasbro still managed to successfully market Skids as one of the mainline Autobot characters from the 1985/Season 2 lineup of G1 Autobots, yet Sunbow Studios could only have him appear as a background supporting character in 2 separate episodes of the G1 cartoon. So it is an unfortunate nickname that Skids hasn't been able to get rid of due to the fact that Generation 1 is the only cartoon that he's appeared in, so it is a tad unfortunate. Hopefully one day Skids will be able to shed his nickname of the Forgotten Autobot and finally be a major supporting character in a future cartoon series, but time will tell. I hope the Transformers franchise will allow Skids is to finally join his fellow 1985 Autobots in the spotlight and be recognized as a proper Transformers character. So here is Skids inside his packaging. I hate the open window packaging. But one thing I like about Legacy Skids that it's just how much he looks like the Generation 1 version of Skids. That's been true with most of the Legacy Transformers based off of the Generation 1 characters so far. So here's a artwork of Skids in his alt mode. There he's in his robot mode. On this side of the box you've got some artwork of Skids in his robot mode. There's a close-up of his face in his robot mode with his weapon. Up and on here on this side of the box you got the poster image for the Legacy line. You got the Legacy logo on the top of the box. Coming on here to the back of the box we have Skids in his robot mode and his alternate mode. And he transforms back and forth between both modes in 14 steps. He actually comes with 2 separate weapons. He comes with or 3 weapons I should say. He comes with 2 silver laser guns, a single barrel and a double barrel, and then he also comes with a blue Energon axe, and you can combine all 3 weapons into a 3-barreled laser gun that has an axe blade on top of it. And in vehicle mode, the weapons just store on the roof and the sides of Skids, so unfortunately there is no decent weapon storage without taking away the fact that he's supposed to be a robot in disguise. And even here on the front of the box on the artwork, it's got all 3 of his weapons plugged in all around him when he's in alt mode. Now, one thing that's led to some confusion amongst Transformers fans and collectors is Skids' vehicle mode. He's based off of a hatchback sports car, but because of the boxy shape of it compared to the other Autobot cars in the 1985 lineup, for the longest time there was a misconception that Skids transformed into a type of small minivan or compact van, but he is in fact a sports car. He's just one that has a hatchback trunk. So I'm glad that the Transformers community started to clarify that for those who were confused about it. And this is an end. I just really enjoy having Skids in my collection. I do have the previously released Transformers Generations Deluxe Class Skids figure that was released in the Thrilling 30 line back in 2014. I'm not going to bring that out for a size comparison because unfortunately it's inside a storage bin along with a bunch of my other Transformers figures that I bought around that time back in 2014. But I will do a special size comparison of Skids with some other Transformers figures as soon as we get him out of the packaging. But yeah, I'm just really thrilled to have this figure in my collection. I've been wanting to have a Generation 1 looking version of Skids for Ids ever since the Generations 2014 figure was released, because that version of Skids is based more on his appearance in IDW's comic books, and it's even a much lighter shade of blue than Legacy Skids, which is much closer to the more navy blue ooh shaded plastic that his G1 figure came with. So without further delay, let's get Skids out of his box and take a close look at him in robot mode. Alright, and so here is Skids out of his box and in his robot mode, and I am really impressed with how well Skids turned out. I am thrilled with how accurate he is to the original Generation 1 Skids figure. Out of the box, some of his joints are a little stiff, so I won't go into his articulation too much. But I just enjoy how much this looks like Generation 1 Skids, but with improved articulation. One nice nod to the Generation 1 Skids figure is that on Generation 1 Skids, he did not have fists that had 5mm holes inside them. You actually had to clip the weapons on to his lower arm. So if you want to mimic the way a Generation 1 Skids held his silver laser guns, which the two laser guns that Legacy Skids comes with, they're the exact same ones that the Generation 1 Skids figure came with. So if you want to mimic clipping them onto lower arms like the original G1 figure that was released in 1985, there's two 5mm ports on the lower arms where you can plug the weapons into. But yeah, I'm really impressed with how these weapons all turned out. And then of course, Skids also comes with this blue Energon axe here, and then see if I can do it on camera really fast. So yeah, so to combine his three weapons into the one massive weapon that's shown on his box, you have to plug the double-barreled silver gun onto the bottom of the single-barreled silver one, and then you plug the Energon axe into the 5mm port on top, facing this way. And now Skids has a massive triple-barrel laser gun with an axe blade on the top of it. So it is an okay weapon for combining like that, but for the sake of G1 for those who are nostalgic for the G1 Skids figure, then leaving the Energon axe off and having the two separate silver laser guns, as I had a moment ago, is slightly more G1 accurate. Now, one thing that's come to my attention is that there's actually two different positions where you can leave Skids' shoulders. You can either have them with the wheels of his vehicle mode pointing at the front, or you can have them pointing in the back. Based on all the photos I've seen, having the wheels facing backwards is the official configuration, but if you want the wheels facing front, you can. One of the reasons why collectors have had the wheels facing front is because the way the Generation 1 Skids action figure transformed, it was easier to rotate his arms forward and backwards when the wheels were facing to the front, even though on the Generation 1 Skids figure the wheels were facing backwards like they are here on the Legacy Deluxe figure. It's all personal preference, but I do like that it is there. This is just a minor nitpick, but I wish they would have painted the hubcaps on the wheels silver. I did see one person who got a hold of Legacy Skids, they custom painted the wheels silver and gave Skids actual hubcaps and tires on his wheels. It's okay looking, but looking for what it is. But considering how small the wheels are, this may just be one of those moments where I leave the wheels unpainted. I have voiced my opinion that I hate unpainted wheels in the past. So for articulation, the arms can go actually upwards and downwards at the shoulder joint due to transformation. But that's actually more of a transformation joint. They can actually rotate up and down at the shoulder itself. Bicep swivel that goes 360 degrees. Hinged elbow. There are swivel joints on the wrists, but out of the box it's very stiff. There is a waist swivel, but you do have to move the backpack out of the way to get it rotating, and this has been the main gripe that people have had with Legacy Skids, is that the entire roof and windshield section of Skids' vehicle mode, it just hangs here off the back of him as a backpack shield, and there's really no place for it to fold up in a way to make it more compact when Skids is in his robot mode. I really don't mind it that much, but some collectors have had complaints about it. Skids, his legs can go out that far. They can't really do a 360 degrees due to a slight elevation in the hip joints, as you can see them right there. So he can't quite do a full splits. He does have universal jointed hips, so they can go forward and backwards a decent amount, but again, when you move the legs backwards, they hit the backpack, so the backpack does limit some of the articulation that Skids would otherwise have if it wasn't there. You got hinge jointed knees, and you have ankle tilts, but if you're not too careful, when you try and move the foot at the wheel will end up pushing inward. And actually, now that I'm looking back at the box, and I'm looking really fast at Skids' instruction sheet, I believe, yeah, the wheels are in fact supposed to be folded underneath his feet, so out of the box, that's one part of Skids that's mistransformed, is his wheels are underneath his feet, acting as fillers for them, so just be aware of that. That when you take Skids out of the box and you don't rotate the wheels inward, that is a mistransformation on there. But yeah, another minor gripe I've seen complainers have with Skids is that right here on the back of his head, Skids has a square section of the hood of his vehicle mode forming on the back of his head, and the way Generation 1 Skids transformed, that hood piece didn't have to be on the back of his head. But again, that's just a minor gripe that some fans and collectors have. I personally don't mind it. I think it doesn't really affect like the way Skids looks at all. And his head is on a ball joint, so he can rotate 360 degrees, clockwise and counterclockwise. But yeah, I cannot get over how amazing Skids is. I love how accurate he is to his G1 figure. I love how they even got the silver and red stripes going along his vehicle mode on here. And yes, I even though I sound like a broken record, I just thrilled to have this figure in my collection. I'm amazed at how much it looks like the original Generation 1 figure. Alright, and so for a special size comparison in robot mode, here is Legacy Skids surrounded by his fellow 1985/Season 2 Autobot cars, as they were known in the G1 line. These are basically the quote-unquote standard-sized Autobots that were released in the 1985 lineup of Transformers characters. So here is Skids surrounded by, going by the order in which they were released, we have Hoist, Smokescreen, and Grapple from the Earthrise line. And then from the Kingdom line, we have Red Alert, Inferno, and Trax. So it took 2 years from 2020 to 2022, but we finally have modern-day figures of all seven of the 1985 Autobot cars done in Deluxe and Voyager class figures. And I'm really thrilled with how they came out. I'm excited that they're all slightly different heights from each other. Skids is the same height as Kingdom Red Alert and Kingdom Trax, and also Smokescreen. Hoist is slightly taller, but I can tolerate that due to the fact that he transforms into a large tow truck. And then, of course, Grapple and Inferno are even taller than Hoist, since they're Voyager-class Transformers due to their vehicle modes being a construction crane and a fire truck. But yeah, I really enjoy how Skids looks standing beside his fellow 1985 Autobots, and surprisingly, I've seen very few collectors who I have seen on their channels who could manage to get all seven of these Transformers figures. They didn't bring them out to do a size comparison with Skids, so here he is next to his fellow 1985 Autobots from the War for Cybertron trilogy, and I gotta say, they are really good looking. So for those of you who owned the original G1 figures back in 1985 and you managed to get a hold of all seven of these guys, here's a group shot of them in robot mode. So let's get Skids transformed into his alternate mode, and wrap up the review, and I will share my final thoughts on Legacy Skids. Alright, and so here is Skids transformed into his vehicle mode, and I am really impressed with how he came out. I'm really impressed with the amount of paint on him, not just the red and silver stripes from robot mode, but his Autobot logo, the headlights being yellow. He's even got brake lights that are painted red. And the grille is painted entirely silver. He does have clear plastic for his front windows. The back ones, unfortunately, aren't painted. And even though it looks like it's black plastic, you can tell by the metal pins that are shining through there, the sunroof is clear plastic as well, but there's a layer of black tint over it, so that's really impressive to see. The back, unfortunately, is completely unpainted, and my own conspiracy theory is that Hasbro and Takara Tomy are aware that most adult collectors will probably just keep their Transformers figures on a shelf permanently transformed in robot mode, so there's no real reason to have any of the back parts of the figure painted at all. So here is Skids in his vehicle mode. One minor gripe with my copy is that if you look right there, there's a fingerprint of red paint on there, and I tried to wipe it off right now just to see if maybe it might be mine. It's not wiping off, so I think that happened at the factory, so that's a bit of a letdown to see there. But overall, I really enjoy how Skids came out. I do enjoy the right angles, giving him somewhat of a boxy shape, making him look like his G1 figure, and yes, I wholeheartedly enjoy it. Unfortunately, because again, as I said, the center of the hood is the back of Skids' head. If you turn him upside down, he does have visible face syndrome, and unfortunately, there's no 5mm ports around there where you can store his weapons on there. Now, before I attach his weapons, one thing that a lot of collectors and collectors having trouble with Skids is keeping his roof and the doors of his car mode lined up properly. I don't know how, but I managed to get everything lined up properly, and I think when I was transforming Skids, I don't know how well I'm going to be able to show it off, but a problem that I think everyone has with lining up Skids, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it in there, but if you look right up there, this is what I believe is the problem why everyone is having trouble getting Skids to line up, all his panels to line up properly in vehicle mode. His robot mode pelvis sits right up underneath the sunroof and those metal pins are the back of Skids' hips that are shining through the sunroof there. And you literally have a hairline of space, and I've seen some collectors try and get the pelvis to sit flush with the sunroof. No, do not do that. Do not get the pelvis, do not have Skids' pelvis line up with the sunroof. You have to have it at that slight angled downward angle, and if you look right there, his hips line up with the cavity that does that. So if you try and don't have the pelvis shoved at this angle, then the sunroof will not clip down in place, because if you look right there, having it at that angle leaves you some space, and if you weren't having to do it, then Skids' pelvis, the center of his pelvis, is going to push up on the sunroof. And so I believe that's the reason why a lot of collectors have been having trouble getting Skids to transform properly and get his different panel sections to line up, is not getting his pelvis to sit at that angle. So going by the photos on the back of his box and on his instruction sheet, for weapon storage, there's 3 5mm ports, 2 on both sides and 1 up here. Here where you just plug the laser guns into the sides and the roof of Skids. And because of the way the axe is shaped, you can put the silver laser guns, you can put either of them on either side, but because of how the handle of Skids' axe is shaped, the roof is the only place where you can put the axe on there. So here is Skids armored up with his weapons attached, and someone who's and I've seen a few collectors who are OCD about the designs of cars. They pointed out that there's sculpted detailing here for the door of a fuel tank for Skids' vehicle mode, and they could have just ignored that and had the 5mm port that the laser gun sits in, since it's literally right behind it. That could have been the door to the fuel tank, and you could have used your imagination that it could be on either side, but because it's sculpted there, yeah, those 5mm ports are just there for the weapon storage, so it takes away again from Skids being a robot in disguise in vehicle mode. But overall, I do wholeheartedly enjoy having this thing. It honestly feels like I have a Generation 1 Skids figure, but with the amount of articulation that would go into a masterpiece E-scale figure. Alrighty, and to end off the video, here is Skids in a final size comparison with his fellow 1985/Season 2 Autobot cars, Grapple, Hoist, Smokescreen, Inferno, Red Alert, and Trax. And I am just really impressed having all 7 of these figures in my collection. I'm really amazed at how well they all look, standing side by side with each other. While I have him on a flat surface, I can say that Skids' wheels, they do roll fairly well. What hinders it from rolling perfectly is that the front wheels are only in halves, due to how the front wheels transform into Skids' robot mode shoulders. But yeah, overall, I do enjoy how Skids looked. I enjoy how all these guys look. I honestly, from photos I've seen on the internet in the past of the 1985 Autobot cars, I honestly feel like I have all the G1 Transformers figures here in my collection. I do have a third-party racing spoiler here on Red Alert. But that's the only upgrade kit I've had to buy between all 7 of these figures so far. There are some gap fillers for Skids and also Kingdom Tracks and some of these other figures here, but I haven't seen the need to buy those yet. Granted, I just took Skids out of his box, but overall, I do wholeheartedly enjoy this by seeing all 7 of these standing beside each other. So for the proverbial question of the review, do I recommend you get Legacy Skids and add them to your Transformers collection? Absolutely. Skids is highly recommended. Again, as I said at the start of the review, the previous action figure of Skids that was released was the Generations Thrilling 30 Deluxe Class Skids figure, and that was released back in 2014, so it's been 7 years since... I'm sorry, it's been... is my math off? Yes, it's been 8 years, actually, since we had the previous action figure of Skids released, so I do recommend you get Legacy Skids. As I said before, he's currently my favorite deluxe figure of the Legacy line. He will forever be my favorite deluxe class figure from Wave 1 of the Legacy line. And just be mindful of what I showed off with transforming Skids' pelvis that way, because you can successfully line up Skids' roof with the sides of Skids' roof with his doors, or is on here. One thing that it does do, one thing that I have noticed on Skids, and I don't know if it's because of the way I transformed it to get the roof lined up, there is a little bit of a gap in the back of him where his legs aren't quite attached together. I don't know if it's because of how I have his pelvis shoved there in the inside middle of his vehicle mode, but I'd rather take a gap in the back of the vehicle than having the roof not lined up properly. But yes, thank you guys all so much for watching, and until next time, you guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and until next time, you guys, this has been the TFN Geek. This has been my review of Transformers Legacy Deluxe Class Skids. I highly recommend you get this figure, and until next time, you guys, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.